Here at Be Freaking Awesome, we believe that life is too short to be anything less than extraordinary. Join us as we explore what it means to live authentically, grow continuously, and have a blast while doing it. Let's get started. Welcome, everyone, to this week's episode of Be Freaking Awesome. I'm one of your hosts, Sami here with Angela Belford, and today we are joined by a very special guest and fellow NSA member and speaker, Meshell Baker.
Hello. Thank you for having me, Sami and Angela. I'm really excited for this conversation today. And hello, listeners.
Thanks so much for being here. Before we jump in too far, will you just give us, like, really high level, somebody who maybe has not heard of you before, tell us about who you are and what you do.
Oh, wow. Okay. My name is Meshell Baker. I am the Chief Confidence Igniter. My passion is empowering self-belief. And the way I do that is to help people and organizations and teams understand how to take those feelings of doubt and uncertainty and transform them into belief, confidence, and just clarity so that they're able to perform, have more productive, engaged days at work and in life overall. So just really enjoy where you are, what you're doing at any given point in time.
I love that. This is very exciting.
I had no idea any of that stuff when I'm on just doing my little thing on my monthly virtual membership for NSA. Those of you that want to be speakers, may I invite you to join National Speaker Association, North Texas. They say the number 2 chapter in the nation, but I don't see how it could be better than us. We're awesome. Anyway, but we were both on virtual that week, and we were all popping our LinkedIn profile. I click on our LinkedIn profile, and we should be friends. She's like, yeah, let's have Zoom coffee. And so she clicks and adds the link, and it was hilarious because we both showed up to it going like, who are you? Why are we talking? Because it was like 2 weeks later. We totally had forgotten.
All on the calendar.
100%. Anyway, and then we had a 30-minute call, and I think, after an hour and 10 minutes, it's like, no, we really have to go. Like, we have other things going on. So anyway, I'm so excited for you to be here. This is not our first episode talking about confidence, but it is such a different angle, and how you really inspire people to really develop that. And it goes so closely with what we talk about a lot with Traveling Light, and everything starts with ourselves.
Yes.
And if the more we can love ourselves, then the easier it is to love others. The more confidence we have in ourselves, then the easier it is to, encourage that confidence in others. So yes. Delighted that you're here.
Thank you.
I love that. I was like, so as somebody who wasn't a part of the initial conversation, tell me a little bit more. Tell me more about how you approach confidence that's different than what somebody might expect.
It's interesting because I'm listening to Angela say that I approach it differently, and I'm like, well, what does she mean? What
Well, maybe the question is, how do you approach confidence?
So, for me, it all starts with self. So when I think about confidence and the journey that most people go, most people are, and most of the people that I work with tend to be adults. So these are people who are currently either a business owner or professional, a leader of some sort, and they have been living life doing what they feel they need to, have to, ought to, should be doing. And they've hit a juncture where they're trying to figure out why I'm doing all the stuff. So why am I miserable? Why am I overwhelmed? Why do I feel frustrated? Right? Why am I just angry for no reason? Right? Lashing out, not getting along, feeling like I deserve more. And what they're not realizing is that what they're doing is they're on a repeat of every day. So every day you decide that this is unfair, then the next day it's going to continue to be unfair. If you decide you're frustrated, until you actually take a pause, stop, and decide that today is the day that I actually win. Today is the day that something amazing happens. Today is the day that I actually feel better about who I am, and get an anchor of why. Like, why is that important? What is that going to mean to your life, to your family, to your career, to your finances, whatever the target is? Pick that target and then begin to reimagine that is the outcome. So we create our life by what we decide every single day. And most people are unaware what they're deciding every day. They're just doing a repeat. It's like a rerun. Remember, I don't know if the term is still used, right? But like there are reruns in TV, right? You get up and you get to get old show because now we have streaming, so we can watch whatever we want to watch when we want to watch it. But back in the day, TV was live and you'd have to watch these reruns, right? And that's what people don't actually recognize they're doing every single day. They're having a rerun of yesterday because they have not focused on the desired outcome. They know they want it and they may talk about it. However, what they're talking about more is the disappointment, the pain, the setback, the frustration, the unfairness, the inconvenience. And then when they're met with uncertainty, then they just keep repeating it over and over and over again every single day. And it compiles. So if that's the direction you're headed, you're going to end up divorced, alcoholic, overweight, burnt out, like heart failure, diabetes. You literally are causing your mental state, your physical state, and your spiritual state to break down.
I want to push back with love and tenderness and then not necessarily, as a representative of the everyman, which is a little bit of a throwback for longtime podcast fans. Our original co-host was Josh Belford, my younger brother, and his role on the podcast frequently was, no, I'm going to represent the everyday person who doesn't read all the books and do all the things. Like, no, but really, you're saying that my boss who's a jerk is my fault. You're saying that my parents sick is my fault. Like, you're saying that I'm choosing all these things, but like, I didn't choose all these things in my life. Like, come on, this couldn't be my fault.
Before you answer, we were actually going to say the same thing, similar things, is because I remember when she said this the first time, I had kind of a visceral response, like, wait a minute. And here's what I love is that, Meshell, I hope you will answer her by sharing your journey of your discovery, because this does not come from the mountain peaks of positive thinking. This actually comes from some valleys. Am I right?
Exactly. So, yeah. And so and I'm a live stream. So Angela, I will never say exactly what I said.
No, that's fine.
I said it. However, I get that. It sucks. It's unfair. Right. I've got a sister down the hall who, has been sickle cell and has been in constant pain since she was 7 years old. She does not get to do the thing. She can't fly on a plane anymore. She can't sit in a car for long periods of time. So she can't travel anymore and do all the things she'd like to do. That is a very unfair life for her. Right. And she didn't choose it. Sickle cell is both of the parents. My mom and my dad had a trait and she got the disease. Right. I have nothing. My brother has nothing. Right. So we got the good gene. So how unfair is that? Right. I had a family member recently die of brain cancer. Right. He was 62 years old. Right. Really good, honest, nice guy, cousin, just a really, so like life hands us all of these things. What I explain to people is, yes, it's not your fault. It's 100% your responsibility, how you respond to it. So what you're creating in your response is you're creating the rerun of the outcome. What you talk about, you bring about. What you utter becomes your outer. So how you respond to it will dictate what you glean from it. So if you believe in God, universe, source, creator, anything abundant, that the universe, there's something greater out there, like we're all interconnected. If you can at least embrace that concept, you would understand that the way we develop as human beings, how we develop our character, the quality of who we are, the legacy we leave, how we impact and lead others and help others, how we jointly have better lives, is how we respond to our circumstances. So when I'm sitting there complaining about my circumstances, I am literally sending energy off of me to another person. Now, take this just one more level deep. If you understand, so I'm not, people are watching this. If you can't see me, I'm dropping a pin in the air so people can see. By the law of physics, when something drops, what happens? It falls because of gravity. There's another law of physics. It's energy. Energy can only be positive or negative, right? So guess what
Mhm.
happens when we die, right? What do?
Mhm.
They zap us with electricity, with energy, because they want to bring our soul back. That's your soul that's leaving your body when that energy goes. That's why you go placid, right? You look like plastic because there's no more energy left in you. So since energy can only be positive or negative, and we are energy, we can only be positive or negative. Whatever you are, like the law of physics, you attract whatever you are. So
Hmm.
people who go through difficult times with the belief that this too shall pass. I don't know why this happening is happening to me, and yet I know I will be better, stronger, faster, brighter, more brilliant and beautiful when I come through the other end of this. Guess what happens to them versus somewhere sitting there talking about, oh, my boss sucks. I don't know why this is happening. This is unfair. I should have a better life. They are not creating a better life. They are creating more of the miserable life.
I love that. I just once again, I'm applying it to, there are days where I am like, oh, this is, so one of the things that Meshell reminded me when we had our conversation a couple weeks ago is, this is happening for me. This is not happening to me. And so over the last few weeks, there have been several opportunities that I'm like, okay, how is this happening for me? And when I ask that question, I just take my I take my eyes off of the storm, and that's a reference for people of a faith persuasion that I share.
Yep.
I take my eyes off the storm and I like, how is this happening for me? And there have been several times during, I mean, and I heard that years ago,
Yep.
there's nothing new under the sun.
Nothing.
And yet still I heard it in a way that I needed to hear it. And I have an interesting work situation where I've been a family owned business leader. I mean, owner for a long time. And now I'm getting to be a leader in a family owned business. And I'm like, ooh, there's a good case study. And when I can think about it as it's a good case study of what it feels like to be the leader in the business and not the owner and to get to make decisions, I have a much better outlook on it. And when I'm like, why won't they listen to me? Then I obviously have a much worse outlook. Right.
Exactly.
And so, I mean, the simple things on how we think about things are like, I say, if your husband doesn't normally cook for you and cooks and there's this huge mess in the kitchen and you're like, oh my gosh, that's so sweet, he cooked for me. Or do you go, oh my gosh, you made this huge mess?
There you
Like,
go.
that's just a really quick and easy example of like
Mhm.
how we look at this situation directly impacts how we feel and our energy.
Yes.
No,
And
and I
how you
think that
feel
makes
in
sense.
your energy. Oh, yeah.
Go
And
ahead.
how you feel in your energy dictates the next action. It dictates the next step. It dictates the next comment out of your mouth, which then takes you to the next place. So we create based off of how we speak. These are principles that are universal, biblical, whatever you want to call them. They can't be bent or broken or modified in any way, right? And so
Mhm.
our mentality is our reality. Like I said, what we utter becomes our outer. And I recently had someone reach out to me for a 15-minute quick chat. She was struggling with trying to get a birth certificate and all these things. And I listened to her and I clock it. So I let her talk. It would think it was like for the first 6 minutes of the call, she just talked about all the problems, everything. And I asked her how long had they been going on. For years. I'm like, and how long have you been talking about it the way you've been talking about it? For years, right?
Mhm.
So what do you think would happen if you start speaking this as if this is as if it's done? I've gotten and received what I know I'm going to get. I don't know how, I don't know where, but everywhere I go, I'm favored. Doors open that don't open for other people, because when I walk in, I am a joy to communicate with. Even if it's not going my way, I'm still speaking joy and kindness, and I'm pouring out into anyone I'm connected with. I recently
Mhm.
talked to someone because they were putting me in a system for a vendor. So one of those big fortune companies, and it was taking forever to get paid. And I got on the phone with someone and I just asked her, how's your day going? We started talking and I was who I was. And by the end of the conversation, she, girl, you getting paid. You're going to get paid by right? Because of favor, because I didn't call her frustrated and angry that it wasn't happening. I called her with the belief that I get to leave someone better for having met me. Whatever the outcome is, I get to. And that's what most people are not living their life. They're thinking someone owes them something and it's unfair and they're frustrated. And guess what you're met with when you start off from there? However you start dictates how you finish. And that's why, as we talked about, Angela, the first thing in the morning is everything. And most people get up with the thought that they're already exhausted, they're already angry, they're already tired, they're already mad, they're already disappointed. And then they wonder why their day goes that way. You already decided what the day was when you woke up.
That's so funny. Just this morning, I was talking to a friend on Marco Polo, which is a video chat thing, and I was like, I love how I am in the morning because it's like I reset. It's like back those of us of a certain age had chalkboards and they would clean the chalkboard, and it's just fresh and new. And I'm like, I love that I love when, I'm not saying it's always, but I love in the morning, I just have a different angle on things.
Well, and this is for me, recently I had an experience of somebody getting challenged pretty directly on how they were showing up with really big kind of negative expectations about something. I am a part of a spiritual discernment prayer group, and we have a couple of visitor nights, anybody come and do whatever. In addition to, we have 12-week-long classes that we do together. We have more intensive discernment prayer weekends together, really intense work. This was just kind of casual prayer night, not really that big of a thing going on. And this person showed up because of a recommendation of a friend who's been through a lot of the things and has some pretty significant life trauma, and ended up I was one of the small group leaders, and there was another friend who was leading a group, and she has struggled with infertility for a really long time. And this other girl's trauma and her trauma, kind of butt heads. And in the random assignment, they ended up together. And it was hard for the leader, and the participant left and was really mad that she did not get healing from this big life trauma in this 1.5 hour long evening. And so mad that she came back in to let everybody know how she felt, to let the organizer of it know her thoughts. To which the response was, what if this night wasn't about you? What if you weren't supposed to get anything here and you were supposed to show up so that this other person who is the leader can be challenged in just the right way, that she is going to get some healing and some growth from this opportunity. And your being here was never for you to actually get any healing. That was not the purpose of this night. But you being here, you got to be a tool in somebody else's healing and a part of their journey. And that can be enough. And I think that from a very young age, my mom has done a great job of putting in the belief in me that every single thing happens for a reason. Yes. You may or may not know the reason, but the ripple effects in your pond happen for a reason. And sometimes we get the blessing of knowing this is the great thing that happened from this bad thing. Sometimes we don't. And sometimes we just have to trust that there's going to be enough ripple effects that person who is at the end of their rope, that you went to the bank and made a deposit and you asked them about their day and they were at the end and that one question made a difference for them. You don't know. We have no idea. And I think that because I have that belief, I look for it now. And I think this is the message, is that I am consciously looking when something bad is happening. I'm like, oh, okay, well, who's going to get something out of this? Because if I'm having to go through this much struggle, somebody's going to have to benefit. And am I going to get to see it? Maybe, maybe not. But I'm consciously aware and trying to find those moments. And then I can see it for other people to be like, wow, that random stranger in the parking lot who gave you a card to cheer up your day. I see how that impacted you. And anyway, I don't know, all of the different things. That was a real story of something that happened to me.
I'm curious, you asked me about the everyman earlier in the question, earlier in the session. So has this answered that everyman question?
It's a great question, because I'm not actually the everyman, because I'm on board with you guys. I've drank the Kool-Aid, so I'm all in. It's a good question. Listeners, if you guys are out there and you're like, but I don't know that this is real,
Yeah.
One, here's three people in front of you who have experienced what it is like to tune your frequencies to try to notice the positive energy more than the negative energy. I also have a second story I want to
I
share
was like, I
with
have
this.
two tutorials.
I'm so
Yeah.
sorry. I'm going to share
No.
mine first. I'm going to share mine first, and then Angela, you
I'm
get both your
yes,
stories.
that's okay.
Well, I
So,
think I know which one you're going to story. If you're showing the brownie story.
nope, not the brownie story.
Oh,
I actually
okay.
wasn't. So, I don't think this is all about positive thinking your way out of hard situations,
No.
because one of the things that I have been wrestling with and practicing this year is there are hard things that happen that it I am allowed and okay to say this is hard and I am sad, and I'm going to let myself feel sad for this. This is not a bad thing to have emotions about this. And rather than what can I do to get rid of these emotions? What can I do to get rid of this sadness? What can I do to like not feel this way? Instead, I'm like, I'm going to allow this feeling because I know it will pass. And if I can just give it some airtime, I know it will go on. We're recording this pretty recently to some of the flooding that's happened in Texas with the camps and the people who have lost their lives. I also, the same day that that happened, had a friend who delivered her baby and nearly died in that. And that weekend, right after the 4th of July, I just like sobbed and was like, I'm just heartbroken for things that are heartbreaking in the world. And rather than tell myself, stop crying, don't feel this, don't, like whatever, just keep going, I'm going to appreciate that I have not become numb to suffering. I'm going to
Mm.
appreciate that I can look at pain and weep with somebody, because that is still a good and beautiful thing, to mourn with those who are mourning and to grieve with those who are grieving. And because I let that happen and I didn't fight it, it felt like it did go faster for me. And this is a practice. This is a couple months of me trying to be like, what is allowing the negative feeling like? And I don't know, but it's different than looking for the negative and complaining and ranting all the time. It's giving a space, usually a container, like, okay, I'm going to allow myself 10 minutes to really feel it as intensely as I can. And then maybe at 10 minutes, we'll reevaluate where we're at. But we're not going to keep staying in it. Anyway, it doesn't always have to be about positive thinking your way out of it. Sometimes it can just be about allowing like the big feeling and then knowing this isn't going to last forever. I'm going to continue to be able to step forward.
Yeah, I think grief is complicated, especially. And so I think giving yourself some space. I've talked about grief this year as like being my little brother that walk up and punch me in the arm. Like, it's not like it's taken me out, but I do just let it come up, let it go out, and then keep looking forward to the next thing. So yeah, grief's beautiful.
So
Yeah.
I would like to insert in here one of the
Yeah.
reasons why I speak to confidence in the manner that I speak it, because I've had a very interesting and challenging background. So as I let people know, I was raised in a very urban area. My mother remarried. He was an alcoholic. There was a lot of alcoholic men in my household growing up. So that always, just related to alcoholic men and little girls don't always mix. It didn't mix well for me. So by the time I was in high school, I had no sense of self-worth, no confidence, just living with a lot of shame, right? Fell into my urban area, went from straight A's to almost flunking out of school. Triggered nobody to ask what's wrong, what's going on. Ended up incarcerated by the time I was 20. Glad that it happened when I was young, because of where I was and who I was hanging out with. It was going to eventually happen. And it changed the trajectory of who I was, because then I realized I didn't want to be in that whole cycle. So I got a job, because I noticed that people who don't have jobs go back and people who had jobs stayed out. So I got a job and realized that's where I found that I shine. I love working. I love being responsible. Being raised in church, I had a high integrity for my word, and if you gave me a job, I was going to overperform, right? anything you gave me, I was going to make it be the best that it ever looked. And that's how I started to discover in that showing up early, staying late, in interfacing with my supervisor and knowing what their role was and helping them to deliver whatever it was they're responsible for. It gave me opportunity. So I ended up getting promoted and just all kind of opportunities. And I also found favor in that someone's always watching. So people would watch me and I would have people come and speak life into me. They would encourage me and recommend. That's how I discovered college, because somebody watched me working so well and said, we actually give you assignments to see what you're going to do because we can't figure out why you're here. Right. We know that this is a program for formerly incarcerated. This is around the time I was about 22, working at a law office as a file clerk. Some program I went through. And one of the partners who was actually leaving from being a partner in law to go back to med school, because that's what she really wanted to do. I was baffled and confused. Why would someone even want to do that? Like, why were you going back to school? Sat me in her office and asked me, why am I here? And I said, well, because I have a job, I need to work. She asked me a second time and I answered again the same question. She asked me a third time. At this point, my nature of who I was wanted to fight her, because she had made me incredibly and massively uncomfortable because I couldn't figure out why my answer wasn't good enough, right? So I'm feeling insecure and uncertain in that moment. She saw it and she said, the reason I asked you is because we keep giving you these assignments to see, and we're always amazed at what the result is you give us exceeds anything we thought. You are gifted, you are talented, and you should go to college. I again looked confused because no one had said that ever to me. And she said, oh, do you know why people go to college? Nope, don't. No one had ever mentioned it to me.
Wow.
And she told me why. And that was at 22. By the time I was 25, I was a freshman at Howard University. I had left Oakland, California, and moved to Howard, to Washington, D.C. And it changed my entire life. And I've had people like that. I can't remember her name. I can't remember the law firm, who have intersected in my life throughout. And I tell people, when you show up in excellence, this is what I'm talking about right now. When you show up and do the best you can for who you are, where you are, and what you've been given, regardless of your circumstances, you will be met. You just don't know when and how it's going to show up. You will always be met with the opportunities that change the trajectory of your life and put you on the path to better and higher standards of living. However, people want to show up mediocrity. They want to show up and complain. They want to show up and do the least amount of work possible and think they deserve better and more. Until you become better and more, you can't be met with better and more. And that's what I tell people. So all of that, right? Still, so you would think storybook life. No, I've been diagnosed with suicidal ideation twice, once in my 20s, once in my 40s. I had a fiance who I loved and adored, got diagnosed and was dead in 2.5 months, right? Just, I've had nightmare bosses who I've had colleagues say, you need to quit because of the way they were treating me. I was like, no, I prayed for patience. And until God tells me to leave, I don't leave this job. And that boss turned out to be one of the greatest gift of patience I've ever had. You can't deter, distract, deny, delay, dissuade my confidence and dictate who I am because of getting to work within that environment. So I say this to anybody listening, right? I am not Pollyanna. I am not preaching positivity. What I am citing to you is that you determine your fate based on what you dictate. Every single day, every moment, every interaction. And this is not perfection. I have bad days, right? I snap all the time. And I'm actually aware of it. I'm like, oh, you're tired. You're hangry, right? Oh, you need a nap, right? So I understand in those moments, and I actually reflect back to people. So I'm more apologetic now because I recognize and I'm aware of what I'm doing that is not aligned to who I've decided to be. And that's the big thing. I have decided to be a gift and a blessing, no matter what, where, and who I'm speaking to. Who have you decided to be? See, if you haven't made that decision, you are allowing everything external to dictate who you are instead of internally deciding, declaring, and then demonstrating. And that's what most people don't do.
I love that. I have said a lot I think so much of my joy comes from living to my own standards of excellence, because then I, at the end of the day, feel really good about how I showed up. I've had different scenarios that were really hard. And it's interesting because for whatever reason, maybe this is just human nature, but whenever I'm experiencing death of someone close, I reflect on how did I show up for that person.
Mhm.
And I am like, it has become a recurring theme, like, oh, I'm so happy with how I showed up. And as I faced a situation recently where I was like, how do I want to show up? I thought about, well, I liked how I felt after this other scenario. I'm going to show up in a way that matches me. Did I meet everybody's expectations? No. Did other people think I should do more, less, whatever? Absolutely. Everybody's going to have an opinion. They're welcome to it. I say all the time, if you need an opinion, call me. I got one. I'll be happy to share it. I probably won't charge you for it either. Right. But, if you don't agree with it, then you're going to get a big bill. But, but it's been so much more peaceful and joyful in my soul and in my mind to be able to live to my own expectations. And I think you're right. People, like, we've spent so much of our life, especially as women, getting to this, I'm talking a lot of on my other podcast about midlife, and we get to this point where we've spent our whole, the first couple of decades as adults trying to help everybody else and make everybody else happy. And maybe we even grew up as our childhood, we were trained to do that. And then all of a sudden it's like, well, what do you want? Who do you want to be? And it's like, it is like deer in the headlights for some of us. And sometimes you got to do a little bit like Runaway Bride. Julia Roberts at the end of the movie, she didn't know how she liked her eggs, so she had to make eggs in every single different way so that she could taste them all and decide what kind of eggs she liked, because that was kind of a theme of the movie. She didn't even know herself. And I think some of this self-confidence, this journey, is starting to get to know ourselves. And you don't have to have the answer when you decide this journey. When you say, how do I want to be, or who do I want to be? You don't have to know that when you start. You have to. That's why I had an argument with somebody about my first book, because I said the first chapter was it starts with a decision. They were like, you can't make a decision, you don't have enough information. I'm like, the first decision is to go on the journey.
Yes.
That's the very first decision.
I really want to keep going, and I want to keep asking questions, and I want to keep digging in the wisdom. And I also feel like I sat down, you never know, you're going to get an appetizer, an entree, and I just got like a 5-course meal. And I'm like, I don't know how I could eat one more bite. And so even though this has been like one of the best meals I've had in a really long time, I think we're going to land the plane. I think we're going to be like, wow, this is so, so good. And I want to just continue to stuff my face with it. And in any case, Meshell, is there any last thought or encouragement that you would like to leave people with? We like to ask our guests, if you could leave people with just one thing, what would that be?
Yes. Thank you for asking. Anyone listening to this and going, oh my God, how do I do that? Start with your morning. So if everyone, when I'm on stage and people are asking me in their one-on-one and they want confidence, I always answer your morning. You master your morning, it will have a ripple effect. And the challenge is when you start with morning, you won't see the effect for a while. It generally takes at least a month or two, and it's the consistency. So start small, 5-10 minutes. Just do something every morning to set an intention. If it's gratitude, anything, and you will change your life. Change your life. Begin to dictate and declare that today is the best day you ever had every morning. And just believe. You don't know when it's going to happen. That's the rub for all of this. We can't promise you when. I can only promise you that you will have the outcome when you do it.
Thank you so much. Where can people find you? They want to connect with you, book you to speak, do any of that. Where can they find you?
They can find me if you're looking my name, so you can just Google Meshell Baker, and I've been doing this a while, so Google will give you pages of me, and go to my website. And on there's a calendar link. You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm on Instagram. I have a Facebook page. Or you could just email me at hello@myname, MeshellBaker.com.
Awesome. We'll put all of that in the show notes for you all. Thank you guys so much for listening today. We're so grateful that each and every one of you are here on our journey with us, and we hope you guys go forward and be freaking awesome.